Dear guests, please be aware that we have muted your microphones and switched off the video signal, and we kindly ask you to keep these settings so you won't disturb the presentation involuntarily. Please feel free during the talk to pose your questions in the chat. They will be answered by our expert, and during the Q&A session, we will be very pleased if you speak with open microphones and your screen switched on, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, before we introduce our guest, Joachim Blank, to you, I would kindly ask Professor Dr. Adi Marwan, Education and Cultural Attaché of the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Berlin, to say some words of welcome. Pak Ardi, silahkan.
Terima kasih, Bu Birgit. Selamat sore, good afternoon, everyone. Dear Pak Joachim Blank, dear guest of our 123rd Sarasehan lecture, thank you. Next Saturday, Indonesia will celebrate the National Batik Day, the Hari Batik Nasional. Batik, the traditional dyeing technique that was invented in Indonesia and brought to its perfection in Java, was recognized by the UNESCO as a masterpiece of oral and intangible heritage of humanity on the 2nd October in 2009. Since then, it has been strongly recommended by our government to wear batik instead of office clothes and school uniforms on Fridays and public holidays. Through this policy, batik has seen an enormous revaluation in Indonesian society, mainly in the fashion industry and in contemporary arts. A proof is that well-known Indonesian fashion designers like Danar Hadi or the New York-based Auguste Susastro with his fashion label Kraton use batik for their creations and share their colorful productions with thousands of followers on social media. A highlight in the batik fashion market has definitely the collaboration between Louis Vuitton and the Indonesian street artist Eko Nugroho, who created an exclusive scarf design using batik patterns for the iconic luxury fashion brand from Paris. Not only in the world of fashion, we can see that batik is not an extreme craftsmanship, but a lively, diverse, and creative industry. Contemporary artists in and out of Indonesia are also creating beautiful artworks as well. We will hopefully learn during this event. Today, with Pak Joachim Blank, we will get to know one of the international artists who fell in love with batik many years ago. During the preparations for this event, Pak Joachim, I learned that you have been using the batik technique for your creative work for many years. Betul ya, Pak ya?
Yeah.
But I also learned
right.
that you have been giving workshops and holding lectures, thus teaching teaching your individual technique to young students and artists, not only in Europe but all around Asia too. Let me take this opportunity, Pak Joachim, to express my greatest appreciation to you, not only for using our batik technique as a basis for your beautiful artistic work, but also for sharing your knowledge with everybody interested, thus making batik even more popular in the international art scene. Now, I'm very curious about your lecture and hope that this event will help batik to gain more popularity. Thank you. I hope everybody will enjoy this Sarasehan. Back to you, Bu Birgit. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Ardi Marwan, Education and Cultural Attaché of the Indonesian Embassy in Berlin. Ladies and gentlemen, before I will introduce our today's guest, please let me announce that we are once again awarding a book prize to one of our attentive guests, who will be able to answer a question related to the presentation given by our expert. He will ask this question at the end of the event, and the one of you who will be the first to post the answer to this question in the chat will receive a book. Our today's prize is this beautiful catalog introducing 75 selected masterpieces of the batik collection of the Rudolf Sment Gallery. I hope you can all see it in Cologne. So take good care during the presentation if you would like to win this book. Dear audience, our today's guest was born in 1952 in southern Germany. He is a multiple award-winning artist who received his education as a teacher in the field of arts and crafts at the University of Mainz. Since 1981, he has been working as an artist, often using layered textiles like organza and silk, using batik and other techniques he will introduce to us today. He learned the batik technique from internationally highly recognized contemporary artists and batik masters in Indonesia. His work has been shown in numerous international group and solo exhibitions in Germany, China, Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, Poland, the USA, Denmark, Belgium, and Russia. As a guest teacher, he gave lectures, master classes, and workshops at universities in China, Indonesia, and Austria. Let us warmly welcome Joachim Blank. Joachim, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Birgit. And first of all, I would like to thank you all for invitation to do this today's Sarasehan. And my special thanks is to Professor Adi Marwan and Attaché of Education and Culture of the Indonesian Embassy here in Berlin. Well, first of all, I would like to introduce myself in a short review. And this introduction is a short introduction, as I say. Before I'm going to start with my paper with the accompanying PowerPoint presentation, please allow me some introducing comments regarding to my background as a batik artist. The first approach with batik I did have during my academic arts and craft studies at the University of Mainz. One of the craft course of studies was batik, which I did choose. This was close to my main subject of painting. At that time, I just have had a poor knowledge what batik itself really was. But in 1985, I did join a batik study trip to Indonesia, organized by the famous collector and gallerist Rudolf Sment from Cologne. This was a kind of manifestation about Indonesian batik, which was indeed overwhelming. After some exhibitions in Germany, I got the opportunity to take part on the Dunya International Batik Congress in 1997, I guess. This was the first International Batik Congress, and it took place in Yogyakarta. On my paper, I jumped at the chance to introduce some of the Russian artists practicing batik. This was quite exotic, because only a few had any idea about Russian batik. Some of my batik was part of the Dunya Batik exhibition hall. On this occasion, my special batik techniques attract its interests. A great deal of attention occurs hereinafter. At that time, I gave my first lecture at the Institut Teknologi Bandung, Fakultas Seni Rupa dan Desain. During this period, I got the chance to meet outstanding Indonesian batik artists like Amriyaha, Ardianto Pranata, and Agus Ismoyo, among others. Between 1985 until the ugly pandemic lockdown, I did visit Indonesia many times. Once to give some more lectures at the ITB and the Petra University at Surabaya, and the participation of some more gatherings on batik, for example, the Lomba Batik Festival in Jogja, and did exhibitions, for instance, at the private Bandung Gallery, later on the Fiber Face International Exhibition at Yogyakarta and the Town Hall of Solo. In 2002, I had been invited to participate on the International Tapestry and Fiber Art Exhibition from Lausanne to Beijing, which took place the first time in Beijing. And this was my door opener for all my various activities in the future all over China until the pandemic stopped all my projects. This short and reduced background on my batik development will provide an insight into my batik career. But now let us start with my lecture about my special batik progress within the last 40 years. So let's start with the first file, which is named My Tools. So please, can you open that? No, the first one, Tools. This is the second. Sorry. Yes, number one, Tools, please. Yeah. So I have a screen on my computer.
Ja, nur wenn du sprichst. Mach mal wieder aus dann.
Ja.
Mach mal wieder.
What is this?
Du kannst einfach sprechen, Joachim.
Okay. So, okay, let's start with the tools. Please, next pictures. Okay. When I start with the batik, I first only use the brush. During this period of batik realism, I got trained in accurate studies of details. Sorry, I'm a little bit confused now. The brush instrument is my main thing since the very beginning of my batik. Chanting thrills me not so much. As a batik painter, I ever used exclusively brushes, especially Chinese ink brushes, which you can see on the first picture. And they have a perfect shape and can manifold use. During my experimental stage over the years, I developed the rubbing methods in the techniques. And this, you can see some materials like the bark behind and the plastic grid. For that rubbing technique, I used the big brushes, like you can see in the picture on the far left, far right, how to rub the structure of a bark. So we can go to the next. So I have a little problem because I can't see the whole screen on the this one. Can you? Okay. Thank you so much. So there are some different methods I used in the following. That was just the copper chop print method and the wooden print block. So I heat it up in hot wax, and then I start printing on a canvas or on the cotton. And down below there is the grid rubbing technique demonstrated. Well, this is the next one, please. We start with a realistic batik. My early batik, yes, of course. So, during this period of my batik, I got trained in accurate studies of details. It was not of a main interest to create a detailed copy of subjects. The things behind and the appearance attracts me, which was the charisma of a landscape, sky, and street of houses. Last one, I turned my attention on the light and shadows of street view in southern France, for example, which creates a magic depth in the picture itself. In my landscape motifs, I always was endeavored to comprehend the atmosphere in the appearance, especially the wide and open Pacific skies. Also, the impressing clouds was a fascinating theme and an inexhaustible challenge. So on the first one, this is a landscape in the far east of Turkey, to the close to the border of Iran. And you can see how I did the image from the original into a batik. The second one is how to transform a landscape in the Anatolian part of Turkey into a picture below. And then the cloudy skies in a interpretation on this batik. And the last one is a scene from Greece Island, and how I did the interpretation in my batik. Did always start in the early 80s, and because at that time in the University of Mainz, everybody was attracted by realism. So we did all these realistic batik art paintings. Next, please. So there is another example how to do an interpretation of a street view into a batik. This attracts me because of the light and the shadow of a, for example, southern France village. Next, please. This is one of my very first batik I did at the university. This is a park, a landscape in a park. And I did it by dotting my pencil on the silk. Another example of a street view. This never exists, I think. It was in Istanbul. Well, I call it a landscape of city landscapes. Well, another image of landscaping, trees in the part of Belgium, and it's in my hometown, Worms, close to Worms. This Summerfield images. Next, please. So this is maybe for a more wider interest with my current batik, which I used at first professionally, my rubbing techniques. And on this stage, you can see the rubbing of a plastic grid. And the infield of the batik has been cut and burned, and I filled it in with the unspun silk and with paint. The right one I used to some jelly bones, even the same technique with the rubbing, and printing with structured cardboard. Next, please. Well, on the left, you will find a kind of multi-layered batik collage, which I glued some parts of my batik in a multi-layered. And in the middle, this has been done with a wooden block. You can see the structure of the wooden block, and even the second layer was a plastic grid. And in the infield, I did burn some parts out of it and underlay it with silks. And the right one, the same method is a rubbing technique, which I used this plastic grid. And even in the middle, I did some multi-layered collage. So we have another image of wooden block stenciling. Well, from the left to the right, the first one has been created by this rubbing method because I had an underlay of a structured cardboard, and I did rub it several times. In the middle, this is a structure of an underlay of a piece of bark, and I repeat it in 2-3 times. So you have an image of a bright and shadow parts in the batik itself. And the right one is a mixture of different rubbing methods, and with a collage technique, the blue pieces are glued on the batik. Well, the triptych on the left, this was a stenciling method with a card block. So you have multi-layered images of different shapes and colors. And I filled in with calligraphy in the middle of the triptychs, and the part of the triptychs. The next one, called Dancers, is even made by a rubbing method of a structured cardboard. And the blue parts is, I did use a cover stamp from Indonesia, a star motif chap. And well, yes, you can follow, you can go on. Yeah. Another kind of pictures of 4 pieces, which I did the same rubbing method with a structured cardboard. And the gate is made just only with a wooden block stenciling. And this was exhibited at the Fiber Face in Jogja at that time. Next, please. Well, this is a very transparent kind to use my own batik develop, which is something like aquarelle technique, I would say, even mixed with a rubbing, and the infield, the dark parts, are just paint with a batik dye. And it's a double layer. So the first layer is the dark one, and the second layer with organza silk. So both structures are mixed. And in the middle of this series, you can see the plastic grid shape. So, well, next one. Yeah, even the same method, but as an appearance, you can gamble with all of this kind of stenciling, rubbing, and I did it always with a double layer. So the first layer is a batik on cotton, and the second layer is a organza silk, and both patterns are mixing, and it's a appearance of holography. Which is now in a 2-dimensional, but if you have the idea how it works, if you see the picture, so if you go around, if you walk around the picture, so it's changing. All these structures are in a changing appearance. The page on green, excuse me, can you go back? The page on green is just made with a small wooden block. And I like the structure, which is following like a falling rain or something like that. And the reflection is made with the same method. And I burned some holes into the fabric and had an underlay with different kind of silk and paper and so on. Next, please. Yeah, how can I say it's just the same method every time. The left one is a kind of transparent, or kind of like you do aquarelle painting, and I glued some parts of unspun coconut fiber, and the fjord in the middle, this is a bark structure, and in this picture you can see the light and the dark parts, which has the effect that I remove the wax first, then I wax again, and I put the bark a little beside the first rubbing, so you can. It's a kind of death in the picture. Even the heavens, the right one. This is made by special rubbing techniques which are used kind of cardboards. And I remove the wax and I wax again, and so it's from the bright to the dark parts in the batik. So next, please. Yeah. This I have did with a tropical stencil, which I found in the forest of Bandung, and it was a sarong piece, I would say. This I did in the workshop of Hani Vinodosastro in Jogja. Next, please. Yeah. All this kind of batik is which are now following is a double layered. So the first layer is a batik on cotton with a stenciling method, and the second layer is a batik made on organza. So both patterns are mixing, and the geometric meadow is made with the same method of stenciling and rubbing. So well, this kind of batik is made by the first layer on the cotton was made with a wooden block stenciling, and the second layer on organza silk is this structured cardboard rubbing, and both structures are mixing, so it looks like a double layer holographic images. So thank you. Next one. This is a detail of this mossy overgrown pictures. As well, made with a wooden block stencil. And on the right, you can see these structures a little bit expressive more and brighter. So this is a very nice piece, I think. And in the infield, I did burn some holes into the batik and had an underlay with different materials like colored paper and silks and so on. And this is the detail. So you can see the burnt pieces on the batik and the underlay. I did it several times, about 5, 6, 7 kind of the same images on this. So next, please. Well, how should I say? Just watch, just see it. It's always the same method of stenciling and rubbing techniques, and double-layered batik like the slim, for example, and the left, the right one, the two on the right side. It's batik has been cut and burned, and the underlay with fabric, colored fabrics. So thank you. This figuration, a small one, is even made with a plastic grid rubbing method. So next one. Okay. So we can switch to the next, please. Well, even in my so-called abstract batik, there is an image from what I should say, from landscaping and so on. And you can see the first idea I had when I have an overflow over a landscape with some rice fields or what it is. And I did this interpretation in the picture on the right. So next. Okay, the haystack batik. The first image I got when I walk on a walk like this on a meadow or something like that, and I transformed that in this batik called haystack. So beside all of this, I had sometimes I did sometimes a new transforming of collage technique. And the first image is a photo, and on this I have an overlay with the organza silk. Even on the right one, I did it in the same way. So I adapted the figures, which is just like a shadow on a batik figure. So, and at that opportunity, I had a single exhibition at the Olsztyn Gallery in Poland, and this is a view into the exhibition gallery. So, well, now we switch to Institut Technologie Bandung, where I did some workshops with the students here. During my workshop at the ITB, I always worked together with the students in an extraordinary batik technique. Of course, I was afraid to use my unusual and unknown tools, which are far away from any traditional batik methods. Otherwise, it was my intention to walk off the beaten tracks and to establish an unknown method in batik so far. One of my special methods of stenciling was to use wooden blocks. These wooden blocks I did find accidentally during a walk around the forest close to Bandung city. Some trees had been cut because of an attack by pests. Hard ticks, spatfalls, and bugs had destroyed the interior tree trunk. But this ferment creates incredible designs. Cut into manageable size, it was a perfect stencil creating various pattern in combination. So you have an idea about this so-called natural chops, which we find therefore in the forest of Bandung. We have the chop full shape, chop multi-structured, chop full shape half circle, chop full shape, and chop natural structure. The last one, you can see these structures made by the spatfall, hearticks, and the bugs. So next, please. This is an image of this wooden block stencils, which I used at the ETB during my workshop. And you have to heat these blocks like you can see on the right side in the hot wax. And then you can start with the stenciling. Next, please. So the students show you here in these pictures how to use it and how to create different patterns. it was very exciting at that moment because nobody had any idea about that, and it was amazing to follow the students' work. Next, please. This was a view into the workshop at the ETB. Next, please. So, different kind of motifs has been created by the students. So on the above on the left, they used they used the half circle stencil, and it has been combined with several other stencils. So first we removed the wax, and then we have a new color laid on it, and then we start with the stenciling again, remove the wax, stenciling again, remove the wax, stenciling again. How it is shown on the bottom left and right. So on the left above has a combination of traditional